Now, sir, I just as you mentioned that this is not a question and answer session, that we have some concerns to be clarified based on your presentation as well as what we have faced before. Sir, you mentioned that the first point I will, as a team leader, I start with from the safety of my team members. You said that chances of infection will be there even though we are having with proper PPE kits and head caps, shoes, whatever it is. Can you bit more explain that areas that we want to know about?
Chances of infections are more predominant, even though with our context using PPE kits. There are negative air pressure rooms, which the aerosol generations, even though which was there, the infection rate is very, very minimal. And another important thing is this PPE kits are not much protective. And you know very well, I just wanted to say something that PPE kit that we are using in government hospitals are for HIV patients, not exactly for the COVID-19 patients, which is the same pattern we are preparing here.
Okay.
And another important thing is it is like aerosol generation only. The thing that we are giving for the patient for first relief breathing or diaphragmatic or coughing, huffing technique, there may be a possibilities even the patient is in nasal cannula or mechanical ventilation. We can remove that. Then only they can able to extubate the secretions. So the chance of getting simple droplets also may get an infection for the physiotherapist. If the room is a negative air pressure room and we are with the full protections of gowns, we have full protection gowns, which gives the 95% efficacy. Another important thing, the things that we are using like TheraBands and other inspiratory meters or a lot of exercise machines are there. Now, Indian context, it is not available. In future, it may come. So in that time, what will happen, that may get contaminated if you are using for more number of patients. Each and every patient will have a own thing and they should use and they should throw it. Otherwise, what will happen, we have to clean it and we should do it properly, the recontaminations, and as well as everything must be very clean to prevent the protection from this aerosol generation. So another important thing, donning and doffing of PPE, how to don and how to doff. That is very important. That needs itself all healthcare providers like staff nurse, physiotherapist, doctors, everybody needs a adequate training also. That is very important. Without that training, if we can enter the wards or ICUs, chance of getting infections are more. Because I had seen lot of doctors are getting infected, staff nurses are getting infected, even though they used to tell, sir, we are with the proper PPE, how I contract COVID-19, I don't know. This is the thing. And another important thing, hand hygiene. People with full gloves and other things, but accidentally what will happen, they maybe keep the hand the face, chance of getting infections by touching the patient's particles, air particles, or some sort of droplet particles may get infected. So these are all the chances inside the COVID wards that we should take more precautions.
Sir, thank you, sir. But I want to say that we are in hospital here. We are following the protocols, especially which are advised, like whatever the safety measures which you have mentioned, we are following very strictly. Before we send our therapists to the COVID wards, we have a separate training for donning and doffing, and it is certified. Then later only they are allowed for the COVID treatment procedures. This is just for sharing with you. And second thing, sir, is there any evidence says that how long can be a physiotherapist be inside the ICU for treatments? Is there any stipulated time says like that a physiotherapist should not be there in more than 3 hours or 4 hours, or he should be there 5 hours, something like that, sir? Is there any evidence, sir?
Very, very important question. Physiotherapist must be inside the COVID wards as well as in the ICUs, isolation rooms, just a short exposure, not a time limitation, short
Okay.
exposure. Once they completed the therapy, immediately they have to come back to the separate negative air pressure rooms or ventilated rooms. That is very, very important. And they should clean the hand as well as the other things, and they should be kept ventilated. So they should not be in the long term time for exposure. Chance of getting infections are more.
Okay. Okay, sir. Understood, sir. Okay, sir. Thanks for that. Anandi ma'am, you have, please. Sir, let me introduce my staff members. Mrs. Anandi, she's professor in physiotherapy, cardiorespiratory conditions. So she's, and Miss Prithiha, she is also in cardiorespiratory condition. And Miss Vinita, she's the one who is hosting this session. They're all, and with my team members, there are few people. I would say the name, Miss Jyoti Lakshmi, Miss Vijay Priya, Miss Mohana Priya, Miss Varalakshmi, Miss Priyanka, and volunteers as well, Ranjit Kumar, and Dharma Sasta, and Balaji, and few more people have already done their duties as well as they are all in our team. Minimum there are 12 to 15 physiotherapists are going for this COVID duties with my with all our support. I mean, with our group discussions, and every week twice we have a discussions regarding the treatment experiences and exposures with my team members, my vice principal, all we do have. So let me request my team members one by one if they have any doubts or clarifications to be clarified. I request Professor Anandi, you start from your side first.
Definitely.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
This session was very, very informative and more evidence-based. That was very, very informative for all of us. And you paid a very specific, you gave us very specific information about from dawning and doffing till the post-COVID, sir. So are there any specific guidelines for post-COVID physio care, sir?
Definitely post-COVID, there are a lot of algorithms which has been developed.
Okay,
start from the important thing that I just wanted to share you, that post-COVID pulmonary rehabilitations also need appropriate reference, and as per the needs only we have to give physiotherapy. And there are a lot of guidelines nowadays which has been developed. Definitely for 3 months they need a physiotherapy help and support, as well as psychological support and psychiatrist intervention if they need it. So that is very important. The protocols has been developed. So definitely for 3 months, if they take all these measures properly, they can be live a normal quality of life from the residual impacts, because we can prevent a lot of secondary deaths also. That is very important.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So the question why I arised is, just like a cardiac and pulmonary rehabilitation, how we do only phase 1 rehabilitation, and after people get discharged, we get discontinued from there, from meeting the patients. So I think a similar thing happens in the COVID patients also. So I think patient education before discharge. So I understand from what you say that patient education at the time of discharge may be helpful for their maintenance or improvement of their respiratory health. Am I right,
Definitely,
sir?
Definitely they need during the post discharge, especially not for all the patients. Definitely some of the patients who is really frail, fatigued, and they are having sedentary difficulties, residual impacts. With the advice of proper physicians, they have been referred for physiotherapists and other specialties. In future, it may be developed as a different multidisciplinary teamwork, rehabilitation, COVID care centers. So they should seek an advice. What are all the things that they should adapt in the home, how to do it, and they can get a follow-up also every 15 days once, like that, through even tele-rehabilitation, through a video chat or something like that. So that is very important, and it's not spared for all the patients. because some of the patients get discharged with mild asymptomatic. Moderate to severe or really critical ill recovered patients definitely need our education during the time of discharge.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the finest informations and details you have given to all of us. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
Ms. Pritiha, can you come up?
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for the depthful presentation with criteria for chest physiotherapy and all, sir. And I have few doubts with regards to mobilization for patients with NIV, non-invasive ventilation support. So as we discussed for chest physiotherapy, we had few criteria like for FiO2 about 0.6 and SpO2 more than 90, we are supposed to give chest percussion. There is no contraindications for that. Similarly, do we have any criteria for patients with non-invasive ventilation for mobilization? Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir. I think he is.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello,
sir.
Yes.
Did you get?
Yes.
Did you get
Repeat.
the
Can you repeat the question?
question, sir? Maybe Ms. Pritiha, can you raise again?
Yeah, I'll repeat, sir.
Please.
So patients on non-invasive ventilation support, sir. For those
Oh.
patients, if we are going to start mobilizing them, is there any specific criteria that we are supposed to follow?
Patient from invasive to non-invasive ventilator.
Yeah, patient on non-invasive ventilation, like on CPAP support.
Yeah, definitely,
For them.
because that type of patients only I have insisted already. The patient needs early mobilization. After, say, for example, if the patient is in hospital for above 15-20 days, they
Yes.
are in critical illness, critical type of patients. They develop remarkable weakness of limbs as well as respiratory weakness. The criteria, like we have to start at very graded pacing of exercises. The number one criteria is if the patient not able to do the movements actively, we have to do passive exercises. If the patient can able to do active movements or sluggish movements, we can encourage them to do active. So active early mobilization is very, very important. Then only they can get early independency and getting out from the bed. That is our goal. See, getting out from the bed and making them sit in the chair, it is our goal. But very important thing is, there are certain monitoring things that we have to be noticed. Once we mobilize or turning them for COR protocol, something like that, and getting up, all those things, there are a lot of risk factors also, like orthostatic hypotension and other important things. It's like even the SpO2 level, sudden drop may be there, sudden cardiac arrest may be there. So we should be properly indicated and referred. As per that only, we have to give a physiotherapy. The criteria must be active, early mobilization, very graded manner. Definitely.
Okay, sir. So if at all a patient is able to do their active exercises, but if their FiO2 level is going to be more than 50%, can we mobilize them, sir? Or is there any risk when we are mobilizing them?
When we are mobilizing them, say for example, if the FiO2 level is more, if the patient needs physiotherapy, that is what I am mentioning. Patient has to be get discharged. Patient will be weaned from artificial machines like NIV or CPAP or something like that. They are able to attain 90 SpO2 level automatically by withdrawing the artificial systems. They can able to maintain that level. So that is the indication for discharge. So in that stage only, we have to start our graded exercises. Otherwise, if we go inside and ask us to give physiotherapy, we can give slight positioning exercises that I have mentioned in COR protocol. Positioning exercises and relaxation and gentle exercises. That's all. we should not encourage even though they are doing an active, because the thing is the indications must be appropriate, because this disease is a new one and we cannot predict the improvement like other diseases what we are so far treating. Doctors also even cannot know what is going to happen. So if the progress is good, if the physiological systems are good, we have to give with the support of doctors and staff nurses in a graded manner. So that is very important.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir. How far the CT scan severity score will help us to plan our protocol for mobilizations and all, sir? It's
CT
just a small
scan.
doubt. Like, we had a patient. She was very stable. She was about to get discharged, but when we were prescribing some exercises, we need some certain criteria. So doctors were like, she's having infection in the lower lobes. Her CT scan severity score is little high. So for that patient, we are not supposed to give any strenuous exercises, which can create some complications. So is it like physiotherapist has to concentrate on CT scan severity scores?
CT scan severity is to check the lung damages and how it has been deteriorated and how far the damages or occurs. It is only for the treatment purposes and to improve the physiological systems. The thing is, only symptomatology treatment only we can give, physiotherapist. Symptomatology like some sort of fatigue or weakness like things. We cannot treat with the help of support of CT scan severity. Unless sometimes the patient may have 50% lung involvement. The patient SpO2 level will not be dropped because he had taken a vaccination also. Some of the good vaccines are available. So vaccines does not drop the SpO2 level below 90. So what will happen? The patient can able to do all the things 90, below 90, the patient is not going. So in that type of a patient, we can start giving gradual exercises. If the patient is having symptoms like fatigue or some sort of muscle weakness or tiredness or not able
Hello.
Sir?
கேக்குதா அவரு?
இல்ல sir.
Sir, Vignesh sir? I think you got a phone call.
No sir, mute agala sir. Might be network issues.
Network issues, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Ritika?
Yes.
Okay, let us wait for a while.
Yes.
Yes.
Good question. Now, understand from your point that CT scan scores are just to identify the physiological process which are happening inside. As long as the patient is and we are doing physiotherapy based on symptoms arises. As long as the patient is capable of performing the exercise, we shall go to the next stages of rehabilitation. Correct? Yeah. That is the point. Okay. Pritika, do you have any other questions, or we can move to the?
No, sir. No, sir. I am done with the question.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Can we call host Vinita? Do you have any questions?
Yes, sir. So Vinita here, sir.
Yeah.
So will it be advisable to teach incentive spirometry during the active phase of a disease, sir? Because I found a few patients were referred with incentive spirometry. Will it be advisable, sir?
It is only advisable for post-COVID patients, very effective. Post-COVID patients, if you can teach, some of them asked about the discharge plan, no? During that time, if you can assess the patient, because already the lung which has become a fibrosis occurs, scare lung. So in that stage, it has to become healed. So they need a good training to get back to the quality of life. Because there are a lot of cardiac arrest or even pulmonary embolism, some sort of a problems which has been occurred post COVID. So they need a proper breathing exercises, your diaphragmatic, segmental breathing, pursed lip breathing, how to do it per day 3 times, how many times we have to do and how to do all these things that we have to teach them. In the active stages, for example, in the bedside is concerned, very, very minimal patients is needed. But hospital policies are insisting as like common other cases, what we are giving for COPDs and intercostal drainage patients, we used to give chest physiotherapy, no? So for that type of a patients, doctors are insisting for COVID-19 also. So we can give, because every patient who is purchasing this, it is easily available in shops, medical shops. So they are purchasing and easily keeping in the bed. So we can teach, but which type of a patient we should not teach, that is very important, because we should not harm the patient for the active cases is concerned. The patient is having respiratory rate more than 30. We should not allow them to do this incentive spirometry, because already they are having a dyspnea, distress. So such type of a patient, if we insisted them to do 10 times morning, 10 times afternoon, or 10 times or 15 times evening, means they feel a discomfort and their problem will be more. So we should plan accordingly. So hospital policies are there, we can give very gradedly, and after the discharge we can give appropriate protocol, tailor made it, and give them, they will do it and they will get a wonderful quality of life.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
So this is Anandi, sir.
Yes.
This is the same thing we have experienced here after the first wave, sir. We were doing a small project on the post-COVID patients, especially only the post-COVID patients, and the incentive spirometry was very effective for them, sir, as you said.
Yeah.
And I have another question, sir. It is not actually a question. Can you share your experiences about vaccinated people getting COVID, and how is the pattern of the disease? Is there any difference, like the pathology or the severity, sir?
Wonderful question. But now the data are not still at upcoming. But I have noticed, but I don't want to share the best vaccine here, because I have noticed some few other patients, some 10 to 15 patients I have noticed, the patients had taken a single dose, either a Covaxin or Covishield, single dose. So after that, they contracted a COVID virus. I am telling about this wave, second wave, because now only the vaccines available. So such type of patients, even they're having severity of all the symptoms like diarrhea, fatigue, fever, dyspnea, everything. But only one thing I noticed, whether you have all noticed or not, I don't know, SpO2 level is not going down. That is very, very important thing that I have noticed for the post-vaccination peoples. So this is the main reason that patient is not developing the inflammatory process in the lungs, cytokine showering or storm not occurs. So death rate is very, very minimal when compared to the non-vaccinated peoples. So I have noticed this very wonderful thing, but later on the research will come with data. So it has been evidence proved one. So even in US also, a lot of doctors have been seeing and good infodemics in different types of places about YouTubes. They are also saying the evidence, same thing, at least get a vaccinated, you save your life. That is actually true, because most of the people's not getting oxygen saturation level below 92. Almost all the symptoms are there, but recovering rate will be take more time, even for old age peoples who are with lot of comorbidities when compared to the young peoples. So death rate is very, very minimal when compared to the non-vaccinated peoples. That is the experience I've been noticed.
Thank you, sir.
What you have said was exactly true, sir. Even we had our team members, even 2 times, I mean, they got 2 zaps, but still they got infected. But as you mentioned, sir, I have noticed now, I have recollected now, their SpO2 level was even not reduced from 93, 94. They are even though they got fever or body ache, but they are okay. They are managing, sir, managing. So as you said, that vaccination is mandated, as it is preventing further damages. So even though they
Yes.
got infected, contracted, they are managing their symptoms and pathology, and very well they are after 14 days they are very well coming back to the normal life. They're managing it. What you said is correct. Based on our team members also, in my colleagues got infected, but they are managing, sir. As you said.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's a good point to be noticed. This is a good thing that we need to promote in terms of not the name of the vaccine, but generally vaccination is advisable, sir. That's what
Yes,
I'm just.
definitely.
Yeah.
And one more thing I just wanted to share. The question is a very good question about
Yeah.
vaccination.
Yeah.
Recently, I have published one YouTube video. I shared to your group people.
Okay.
You all can see in your leisure
Okay.
about vaccination and exercises program. Every individuals can do minimum 30 minutes of regular either walking or jogging, whatever the exercises, and take the vaccination. 100%, there is no chance of getting COVID infections and death. Immunoglobulin, IgE levels are increasing. That is very, very important. It has been proved. The articles are coming in the frontier journals. I just attached it also. You can notice my YouTube videos. I just forward it.
Please, sir. Please, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any team members, our team members, do you have any other concerns or questions? Please come up. I'm opening the floor now. It's really a good time. We have Dr. Vignesh here, that you guys, any questions or any doubts or you want to share additionally, you are most welcome. Please.
Sir, I have another question, maybe probably not related to physiotherapy as such. But they said that in the first wave, if once a person has contracted COVID, the immunity they have is for 3 months, 2 to 3 months. Is there any such a criteria which is anticipated for this wave, sir, the double mutant variant?
No, until now they have not yet proven. But as you told that it was 3 months immunity. But nowadays this 3 months immunity also they are not considering. After 1 or 2 months they are advising for vaccination. I mean, vaccination is concerned. And another important thing is they are even though they get immunized by means of contracting the COVID virus for the first time, they may prone to get infections also in the second time in this wave, current wave. Possibilities, because the mutant variant is entirely different. It's highly contagious. And as you said, the 3 months immunity. Now, for this current double mutant variant, they have not yet analyzed or research proven. Studies not yet come for how many days the immunity may be. So it may come in future.
Yes, sir. As you said, Prof. Anandi and Dr. Vignesh, sir, in UAE, I had some information, so my classmates working there, if someone got infected after the first dose, let's say they got a first zap and they got infected after 3 months, they are not going for second doses. Same goes to vice versa. If they have already infected, they are allowed to take only one zap, sir. They are not going for second zap. Like that, it's happening there. I don't know what is the evidence behind that. I just wanted to share here. They consider an infection is also a vaccination kind of. So if someone got infected, they are giving 1 dose of vaccination only. They were not allowed to go for the second vaccination. This happened in Dubai, sir.
Actually, as per the WHO guidelines and science-based, it is not like that. Because once, say for example, if you take a Covaxin or Covishield first dose, they are getting infected, and they may get prone to go for, they are allowed to go for second dose after 2 months, minimum 60 days. It is also for Pfizer, Moderna, or whatever the vaccine may be worldwide. So it is allowed. I don't know why they are banning. It may be a chances of getting the COVID vaccination shortage or something like that. Because definitely we won't accept this once a second time COVID attack is there. So you may get an immunity. So first dose is more than enough. It is not scientifically advisable. They may be get chance because the first dose only give 60% efficacy. Definitely 60%. Second dose, if you put, then only you can get 75 to 80% for each and every vaccinations. So we have to take second dose. Now the enhancement of second dose duration also due to shortage. So I think this may be due to shortage, not due to anything else. We are not accepting that it is not a scientifically proven one. Definitely they have to take a second dose.
Well said, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Any questions?
Sir, another common question we get from COVID affected patients is, after they recover from COVID, a few people are asking they want to take a vaccination. What can we advise? What is the minimum duration of period after which they can go for vaccination, sir, after getting affected from COVID?
60 days. Nowadays, doctors are advising 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 1 month, like 60 days is ideal. It is an evidence-based one. Ask them to go and approach, if they have a doubt, after 60 days, they can approach a vaccination centers. In the vaccination center, doctors are available. They can ask and they can put a jab. So no problem. 60 days after that, they can take any vaccines.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Sir, good evening, sir. Sir, my question is, the patient who are like severe, sir. They have massive secretion and less SpO2. Sir, they are not usually responding. So, what should I do in such a condition, sir?
Massive secretions.
Yes, sir. And they are not able to respond when we try to talk or interact with such kind of patient. They are not responding at all. So under this condition, what should we do?
We should not do anything for not responding patients. The only thing that it is advisable, positioning is possible. If at all, if the staff nurses helps, you can do a positioning. If doctors allows, okay, you can do right or left lateral lying positions if they need, because oxygen hypoxemia is a very common symptom in COVID-19. We all know very well. Even if there is a productive secretions, hypoxemia is a very common symptom. So that is why they need artificial machines, either a O2 concentrator or a ventilator or MIV, NIV, whatever the thing may be. So you can try the core protocols, either passively. The patient is not responded. Passively, we can turn either right or left. Secretions, we cannot do anything at all at the moment if the patient is not responded. Once they are planning for weaning of the ventilator or the artificial machines, we can gradually increase the cough and huffing technique active program. If they are not able to do it, we can give a passive methods. That is the only way. This is for long-term ICU acquired weakness patients.
Okay, sir. One more question is, sir, after taking, sir, vaccine, as we know, there are some drawback of vaccine. I'm not exactly confirmed, but as I listen only, there is some blood clotting coming and some other symptoms, sir. Sir, how can we overcome this?
So there are risks versus benefits. You know that? Risk versus benefits.
Yes,
so
sir.
Every drug, every injections is having a risk. For example, if you take amoxicillin, some of the
antibiotics.
I know I'm not a doctor, medical doctor, or you are not a. I think you are a physiotherapist. So we cannot able to authentically discuss this. But I just wanted to say something that amoxicillin, some of the few people will give diarrhea or something like that. So this is a side effect. So like that only, this medicated vaccines also. This is lakh in one people or million in one people may prone to get side effects. For example, like anaphylaxis, anaphylactic shock. So for that also, they are having some immediate first aid trays in the vaccination centers. They will save our life. Blood clots and other things are not happening in Indian context as per my knowledge. It is happening in the Western culture. So this is actually a false information. Don't go on false WhatsApp videos or YouTube's much. If you wanted to take a vaccination right away, which vaccine is available, you take it. But you should be physically more active person. Then you take a vaccine, no problem at all. Some of the few people are getting worried about the deaths and other things. So they are going for a medical checkup and they are going for vaccination. That is also right. Even there are options. But vaccination is very, very important at the moment to save that.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other questions?